OpenAI themselves describes what they do as a reasoning engine. Hello and welcome to the Health Tech Marketing Podcast, brought to you by Health Launchpad and HIMSS. I'm Adam Chirinas. I'm Health Launchpad founder and CEO and your host for today. I want to give a big thank you to you for listening or for watching, however you're consuming this podcast. And I also want to give a massive thank you to our partners at HIMSS. We've been working together now for, it's coming up on, it's almost 3 years now. And we've been doing this podcast for about 18 months. And they make this possible. I really am so grateful to them for all the support. So today is all about content marketing and one of the biggest issues in content marketing, and that's the rise of artificial intelligence. How is AI going to affect the future of content marketing? And what this could mean for you if you're a content marketer or if you use content marketing as part of your overall strategy. What should you be thinking about? And to help me with this topic, I've got a very good friend, somebody I've known for about 4 years now. He's a content marketing superstar. He's just amazing. Case Meehan, who's the founder and CEO of Epic Presence. So hello, Casey, and welcome to the show. It's really great to have you here. Hey, Adam, it's great to be here. I appreciate all those kind words. That really means a lot, my friend.
Oh, you're good. It's good to have you. So tell me about, tell us about yourself and about Epic Presence.
Sure. So I'm the founder and operator of Epic Presence. We're a content marketing agency that's been around about 10 years. Previous to that, I worked for a couple agencies in Chicago and kind of learned, SEO and different traffic driving marketing, technical marketing techniques. But then branched off onto my own and really focused on writing, long form, in-depth content. And we're still a fairly small shop, but we've done some pretty exciting stuff over the years. We've done a lot of work with Salesforce.com, and in 2021 had one of, if not their number one blog post there on one of their sites, which was, related to a study that we did. We do research as well that we like to infuse our content with. And this was one all about entrepreneurs who started their business during COVID. So that was a really interesting project. And we've been in, dabbling in the AI space in a lot of ways for many years. One of our top clients was an AI startup called Eightfold, and they are in the HR tech or talent management technology space. We started with them when they were like a 30-person company. Now they're almost a 700-person company, and their whole, most of their USP is basically related to bringing AI into the workforce and, the talent management there. So I've also been dabbling in AI. I'm sort of a closet coder. I like to just, when I can, dabble in some Python and different AI techniques over the years. And during COVID, we were really lucky. We had a very talented machine learning data scientist who, for that short window, I could afford to pay on staff, who helped us build out some tools in that space as well. So
that's
the gist of it.
That's fascinating that you've actually you've branched out a little bit into coding. I don't think there were too many content firms that have done that. And you can do is learning how to program an AI. How hard is that? I mean, somebody like me who's marginally technically facile. I mean, I can use HubSpot and I can use Salesforce.
Well, it's becoming insanely easy with the use of these models, and I'm actually working on some YouTube videos that really are the quick start guide to doing that, because now the ChatGPT in particular, and there are definitely others, they a lot of people talk about how they can translate from different languages very easy. Well, it can also translate from English to code just as easily. So by using that and saying, hey, I'd like to do this, can you create a little script that does X, Y, Z? And then spinning that up, it can do some amazing stuff that I could, that I was really, stuck with. And then when you run that code and you get an error, you can just feed that error right back in to ChatGPT, and it says, oh, I'm sorry, try this. And you can just sort of debug. And, I call it kind of caveman coding, but you can build some amazing stuff, just little tools where, I'm trying to experiment with how many words you can stuff into a specific prompt. So if I want to load up just a ton of content into ChatGPT's memory, you need to slice that up. So I used it. I said, hey, can you create a code that slices this massive document into these chunks that I can load up into the model? So
right. Because I've tried
little tools like that can be a huge time saver.
That makes so sense, because I've tried using ChatGPT to summarize like a document that's got several thousand words in it, and it just says, yeah, not going to do that for you.
Yeah, it freezes up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, right. So you guys do a lot of really good thought leadership content. Yeah, I've always been impressed with that. How do you see that changing in the face of AI? How's AI going to impact thought leadership?
Well, it's already impacting, content marketing pretty dramatically. I would say just its number one skill is writing, especially with the, GPT-4 rolling out. But it still is only, it's trained on a very large data set, but it is a very general data set that everyone has access to. So I think a lot of folks right now are kind of using it to just spin up, fairly thin content and then they need to, maybe edit it quite a bit. And I really think that I'm sure that this technology can do a lot more. And OpenAI themselves describes what they do as a reasoning engine that can be used on these unique and custom knowledge bases. So I guess I can get into that, what that means, and unpack.
I don't. What does a reasoning engine mean? I've never actually. It's interesting. I've not heard that term before.
And that's something that I need a little more clarity on too. But I think he's really drawing a line, and I've kind of looked into exactly what that means, and I haven't found like great definitions of it. But I think my interpretation is that Sam Altman is basically saying, hey, this is a machine that thinks. So in the future, you're going to be able to give it a bunch of different things to think about via either the prompts or, as people are getting these longer and longer prompts, what they're actually getting towards is trying to put in a lot of information that they can get this machine to think about and then spit out various outputs there. So using it as a thinking engine, not necessarily as, like a Google search where it's just going to know everything and have all of this information continuously indexed. So that's, I guess, my interpretation of his comments on that.
Okay, so break this down a little bit for me. So if you're working with a client, and let's say they want to do, a thought leadership piece on, the future of the labor force market in a particular industry and how it's been impacted post-COVID and how it's impacted by technologies like AI. How would you approach that? Maybe how would you have approached that pre-AI, and then what's different now?
Yeah, so pre-AI, we would do a deep dive kind of discovery session that we would record in various ways and transcribe and create briefs for the writing team to dive into that, and then go back to them with some clarifying questions, etc. And now I see a new version of that emerging where the interview process will stay similar and be very critical, where we'll be setting up ideally ongoing interviews with various subject matter experts on the client side, and really just picking their brain about current trends, about whatever their subject matter expertise is. Then transcribing that information using AI, of course, editing it, kind of cleaning it. AI is a part of that, but that also needs the human element to manage it to some degree. And then it comes to taking that and building out a knowledge base from that. So these are also known as, you might hear the word embedding around quite a lot, or a vector embedded database. All that is taking this text that we've gathered and converting it into these embeddings that then the AI can access. So it can access these very large volumes, or they call them corpuses, of information. And then we would, potentially then start with a rough draft from that. But I think, it's important to note, once you build that embedding, I think the marketing collateral that you create is really just the icing on the cake. There's so much more that it can do. It can help with, thinking through different decisions. And also with these subject matter experts who maybe their time is limited. And if they have folks that have questions, whether that's clients or it's, their own employees, they can point them to these chatbots that know, potentially, volumes about whatever that subject matter expertise is. There's a lot of ways to use it.
I just want to back up a bit. So this is very interesting. So you're, going back to that example. So you would go out, you do, I don't know, half a dozen interviews with subject matter experts in the company or outside consultants. Maybe you go summarize, get ChatGPT to summarize some academic papers on it, or some articles in The Economist, or the whatever it happens to be, right? And you create these, what do you call these, embedded?
It's so new that the vernacular, I don't think, is fully settled. Some people are calling them vector embedded databases, would be like the long nerdy answer. Some people are calling them embeddings simply. Some people are calling them just like a knowledge base.
Let's call them knowledge bases, because I can get ahead around.
I like it.
Now,
sounds good.
But here's my question about this: is that then publicly available because it's in ChatGPT?
No. That's the brilliance of this, is that then becomes kind of a defensible moat that there's this is your embedding. And this is just as of a couple of days ago, I've seen companies starting to pop up that would include these libraries of these knowledge bases that you could potentially lease out. So that's very interesting to me. And there's also this debate that I'm having with some of my other entrepreneur friends about if you want to keep it private. There's obvious examples to keeping it private. You can just gate access to it, and you can charge for it or whatever. But then a friend of mine who's very forward thinking said, well, that was the case with before Google. With your content, you wanted people to pay for your content, but now you really want your content to be indexed by Google so that it shows up in the Google search results. So there could be a similar parallel there, where you want your embeddings to be easily accessible to to ChatGPT and these others, so that you can get visibility into those conversations that they're having with the world. And I think they are getting better. If you've seen citations, I think are going to be a big thing, where they're pulling this data from. So ideally, there's a world where maybe you do want to put your knowledge base out there publicly in order to get these citations and traffic and visibility to whatever you're doing. So I think the jury's kind of out on that. I guess I lean a little more towards keeping it private, but I think the progressive open source people might see it another way.
I mean, there's the pros and cons, right? And I think the searchability argument of it gives some rationale to why you might want to make some of it, if not all of it, public. But so, and let me throw you a bit of a curveball. So over the last 3 years, through, what I'm doing with Health Launchpad, I've written a lot of content. I mean, over 150 blog posts, each one's several thousand words, and there's a whole bunch of videos in there. We've done, I've lost count how many webinars we've done, which are, each one of those, it's not just me talking, it's people who actually know a lot of subject matter experts talking about various different things. And I realized that I don't leverage what's been, what we've already produced enough. It's sort of like, I'll market the new content for a period of a week or two, and then move on to the next thing. How would you advise somebody like me on what I could do with AI to get more out of the library of content that we've created over the last 3 years?
Exactly. I'm glad you brought it up, because that is a great place to start. Using all of that, inputting it into, as in an experimental way, because this is all still very new. Even some of the most cutting edge folks out there are still just kind of dabbling into seeing what this can produce.
Yep.
And there's a lot of new libraries and just new technologies that are making it easier to search that. And there's a lot of different tactics of how to format those different materials. But I think that's a great place, and it's fairly easier. It's not super time consuming to start doing that and experimenting with it, realizing that, you likely will have to redo some of those processes. But I think it makes sense to start thinking about that and corralling all of those in testing them into these embedded databases, these knowledge bases. And, I'd be willing to bet that you could get some pretty powerful social media copy out of that at the very least.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably some good blog posts. It's hard to say if it would actually be useful, for like a real in-depth
it's more
chat, but
more summary stuff, right? And sort of and bite-like stuff.
It's interesting though, because the more I experiment with it, like you'll upload this database, this knowledge base, but ChatGPT still has access to the entire internet or whatever, a lot of human knowledge, and it can kind of it's a black box, because so behind the scenes it can still take what you've given it and use that as the lens through which to answer questions that may not even be covered directly in the knowledge base that you've created, which is just fascinating to see.
Right. So if I was to say, write an 800-word blog post on demand gen, leveraging what we've published at Health Launchpad, and other sources, it would look at it through the lens of healthlaunchpad.com first, and then look at other sources as well. Is that kind of how you'd approach it? I mean, am I being way too simplistic?
Yeah, I don't think you can really do that right now straight through ChatGPT. I think there are some technologies out there that are trying to kind of bridge that gap. I've tested a lot of them, and I haven't been that. A lot of people are really rushing stuff to market right now. There's a frenzy of that, which is just creating a lot of tools that are just so much less powerful than just ChatGPT itself. So what I would recommend for that is taking those articles and with a little bit of code, converting them into these embedded databases, and then asking it that question. Right. That sounds like it could be complicated. It's really not, to do it on a basic level. But that how we do that is changing day to day, and getting better and better.
I mean, one of the things that sort of that occurs to me out of what you're saying is that the use cases here from how to leverage content, how to leverage thought leadership and subject matter expertise expand quite dramatically, because there's a huge amount of value in publishing that, using that from a marketing standpoint. But there are other use cases as well that can come out of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and those are the things that I'm really excited about. There's like legacy planning. So if someone's retiring, if your CEO is retiring, having 100 hours of them, talking about all the what they know of the business, why they made certain decisions in the past, what they feel like the market trends are. If you're buying a business, you might want to require that. If you're selling a business, you might want to think about having that at hand when you go to try to sell the business. So legacy planning is huge. Training for any managers out there, taking any training materials that they currently have at hand, processing those into this so that they can, in addition to, like, here's the training materials, and if you have questions, go here first. If that really doesn't work, then come to whoever the trainer is. And then additionally, the marketing, those are some of the big ones.
There's a company that I did a little bit of mentoring with early on, that's Austin based, very interesting company called Logic Tree, spelled Logictry. And what they do is take subject matter expertise and turns it into sort of essentially kind of makes it teachable and makes it trainable. Yeah. So they sort of break it down so that, a simple one would be, creating sales scripts for SDRs, but, more sophisticated would be training, creating training modules on more technical aspects.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that legacy planning, maybe it's not even a manager, but it's, you take that big knowledge base and say, create a 5-step, 5 module training on XYZ and see how good of a starting place that is.
Yeah. So let's bring it down to sort of to ground level here. What are some of the quick and dirty ways folks can get started?
Yeah, there are some of these tools that are coming out. Like there's this custom GPT.ai, askyourpdf.com. I don't even know how to pronounce this one. USEFINI, usefini.com.
That is so catchy.
Yeah, really. There's a lot of different tools coming out there where you can just kind of upload a PDF and start asking questions of it. And that's kind of the quick and dirty way of, like, behind the scenes. I believe they're doing some of this, but I think there's limitations in a lot of ways. And then, if you wanted to just go one step beyond that, it's really just learning. There's some cookbooks that OpenAI have put out themselves that walk you through this. There are some good YouTube videos out there about how to just take exactly what you said, take those blog. That was one of the first things I did in January, was start taking our clients' blog posts and formatting them into these embedded databases. And it was pretty shocking how well that worked and how easy that worked. I'm loving this stuff, and I'm really looking for more, test case. So I'm kind of starting some one-on-one projects very inexpensively, not because I'm learning all of this myself, but, if anybody's really, really keen to get started on this, I'd love to chat with them. And they can hit me up at LinkedIn, and we can just kind of talk about, what they have, like your library of content. How can we easily get that into a place where we can just see what we've got, and then see if that makes sense, to do the next thing, or if it's maybe I'm just training you on how to do it, on how I would go about it. Mm-hmm. That's something that's really intriguing to me, and something I'm really passionate about these days, obviously.
What I find so exciting, there's a lot exciting about what you said, but one of the things I find so exciting about what you said is that I think that, when ChatGPT exploded on the scene, was this a matter of months ago, right?
Exactly.
At least for the masses like me, is it sort of immediately thought, as a content writer, do I become less valuable? And what I think what you're painting a picture here is no. As a content marketer, as a content creator, it actually explodes the possibilities of what you can do, because it means, it creates more ways to create interesting content, but it also means that you can take content and do more interesting things with it, sort of create new things that typically a content marketer wouldn't necessarily get into, like creating training programs.
Exactly.
So it's so fascinating, this disruption. All right, I'm going to ask you the future question. I'm going to ask you first of all the future question, and then I'm going to ask you the sort of the crystal. I want the crystal ball to go forward, and then the crystal ball is going to go back. So the first of all, the crystal ball is going forward. Where do you see this going, Casey?
I don't think if anybody gives you a very confident answer in that they're that you can trust them.
I knew you'd say that. That's good, and that is the right answer.
It's unbelievable. It's moving unbelievably fast. This shocked everyone. I think people say that about a lot of things, but I think this really even shocked the creators of it. The jump that we saw, because I've been watching this stuff, not as intensely as I am now, but I experimented with GPT-2 a little bit, GPT-3 more, and it was fun. It got better. It was not, it just wasn't great in early last year. I took a deep look at it and said, well, I can't really roll it out to the team. Not there yet.
Yep.
Then it was like GPT 3.5, which is what happened, right around ChatGPT time. And then that is when it just really started to accelerate, and it has not let up. But I really see companies deploying major initiatives for capturing these institutional knowledge. I think getting ahead of that is something that's going to be very evergreen and very, very useful, because to train these, they're not going to, the way I understand it, training these GPT models takes so much time that there's always going to be some bit of delay between what they're seeing on the internet. And so the more that you can have, at your disposal in various ways, I see, building these models based around specific subject matter experts. I also see, and Bill Gates has talked a lot about this, creating these assistants where maybe there's a knowledge base just tailored to your specific competitive landscape, and all of the things that are happening there. Maybe there's one specifically for your CFO, just on all of the, the data, the forecasts of, of financial information, etc. So these are all the same thing. These are all these knowledge bases that we talked about. And I think, the hard work is going to be starting these interviews, starting to collect this information. And then I think it's just going to get easier and easier to access it with these tools and to use that information.
Yeah.
That's kind of my big, what I'm excited about.
So exciting. All right.
It is.
So we've the crystal ball went forward. Now I want the crystal ball to go back. So
I love it.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
I guess on a very tactical level, it would be like, hey, look out, this thing is coming faster than you could ever imagine. If I could have told myself that at the beginning of last year, that's what springs to mind in the immediate moment. But
I think you're ahead of it. I think you're much further ahead on your thinking on it than many in the space.
I appreciate it, but I guess I have one that's more of a deeper one. Is that I've been doing a lot over the past few years, doing a lot of personality testing and learning about my own personality traits and those of the folks that I work with. And that's been very, very powerful. Ray Dalio has a book called Principles out, and he recently released one about, it's like Principles, Your Guided Journey. And there's a few exercises in there that he walks through that helps you to really look at yourself and what you're passionate about. And that has been really, really helpful for me at going forward, just thinking about how I want to steer my career, a deeper understanding of what makes me tick. So that I think is maybe some more impactful answer to your question.
That's think about that. Yeah, I've Ray Dalio's Principles has never come up on the podcast, and that his hedge fund. The culture of his hedge fund is really interesting, and it is
very unique.
Yeah, I mean, he has hundreds of subject matter experts on staff, and they all have very strong points of view. And it's a sort of, and the culture seems to be about just defending your point of view, and that shapes their investment thesis. It's really, really interesting. Yeah. So Casey, this has been so interesting. I mean, I have learned a lot out of the last 30 minutes.
Oh, great.
Real great pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
You bet.
Brilliant. Before we go, I just wanted to let the folks who are listening or watching this, that if you're watching, you can listen and subscribe on Apple or Spotify, whatever your favorite podcast app is. And if you're watching and you want to, if you're listening and you want to see this, you can find this on healthlaunchpad.com. Actually, if there's a little bonus, Casey is doing this podcast from his guest house up in Maine, and there's a beautiful view of the.
Come visit me in Maine, please.
Oh, I'm there. I'm there in the spring, not in
this
February.
Is a good time of the year. January, absolutely. Not so good.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Adam. And again, if I'm really passionate about this, if anybody wants to talk more about, how I can help with this, please just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love to just go back and forth, share some of the resources that I've seen, and keep hacking through this jungle together.
And it's Case Meehan, Meehan, and his company is epicpresence.com.
Epic
Is that right?
Presence. Yep. CASEYMEEHAN. The company's Epic Presence. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to chat with you.
Fantastic. Okay. And then
awesome.
for those out there listening, if you've got any topics you want me to cover, you can email me at adam@healthlaunchpad.com. Thank you, Casey, and thank you to you for listening and or watching.